Welcome everyone, and thank you for attending our webinar, Smart Equipment, the Opportunity, the Technology, and the Challenges. My name is Tom Trappell, and I'll be your moderator. Today our featured speakers are Michael Kanellos, Senior Analyst at OSIsoft, and Shida Bors, Connected Services Principal for Europe, Middle East, and Africa at OSIsoft. Today's webinar will take roughly 45 minutes, followed by 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. But before we get started, I'd like to mention a few housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded, and we will be providing the recording and slides after the webinar. You can expect an email with the recording following the conclusion of this event. We will also be conducting a couple polls during the hour to better understand your recent experience with data infrastructure solutions and digital transformation. You'll notice on the right our Q&A option on the WebEx digital event platform. I want to encourage everyone to submit any questions you may have through this feature. And if we're not able to get to everyone's question, we will certainly follow up with a response afterward. And with that, I will now hand it off to Michael Kanellos to get started with today's presentation. But gentlemen, thank you both for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Tom. So good morning, everyone. This is Michael Kanellos. I'm a senior analyst at OSIsoft, and my job here really is to talk to customers, talk to analysts, look at data, and try to distill some trends to see where people are going. And it's all really our mission, really. It all flows into our main mission, which is we believe people with data can transform the world. Operational data is this hidden asset in a lot of companies that increasingly, especially over the next decade, is going to be more and more valuable in increasing productivity and getting more life out of capital and other goals. But before we begin, we thought let's do a poll on connected services and smart devices. So the first question, and there's a answering, you can vote on the side there, is how comfortable do you feel about sharing selected operational data with trusted service providers? It's really sort of a new paradigm, especially in a lot of industrial companies, to share that data and let people peer into your operation. So it ranges from not comfortable to extremely comfortable. So if you could please vote now and vote often, we'll then take a look at the results.
Hey, thank you, Michael. While we're waiting for the results to get in, between you and Shida, what do you feel most industries are with their operational data today?
It depends on the sector in a lot of ways. You're seeing more and more people in oil and gas jump into this. I think utilities are fairly comfortable. It's funny, I was looking, it was 2 years ago today that Cal ISO actually, the big solar eclipse was 2 years ago. And all the grid operators across the country shared data and got much without a hitch. So that showed how utilities are getting comfortable with this. On the other end, mining companies, metals companies, less comfortable with it. It's really more of a new thing for them.
Your thoughts?
Yeah. So very much. What I see a lot is that the speed of what companies go from not comfortable to extremely comfortable goes fairly quick. The moment they realize that sharing data brings a lot of value to their, then they immediately latch on to other opportunities and start to share data with more and more companies and themselves. At the same time, within the industries, what I see is that the industries that are most comfortable in sharing are the ones in transition. So like, for instance, the energy sector is very, very much in transition. So there you see a lot of sharing of data, like Michael said before.
Oh, great. Thank you very much.
Michael? I was going to say, like Chita pointed out, you do sometimes see this quick flip from comfortable to extremely comfortable. Like industrial dash cams, there's companies out there that put dash cams in long haul trucks. And at first the drivers hate it. They can't stand it. They think the company's spying on them until they're in an accident. And then all of a sudden they become the big evangelists for it, because what usually the video footage shows is that they're not at fault at all. They're professional drivers. It's the other driver that is. So this thing exonerates them, and they become big fans of data sharing and services like this.
Great. Michael, all right, at this time, we'll be closing the poll, sharing the results shortly. Well, and it looks like the majority of our attendees today, they're either slightly comfortable or moderately comfortable with, their operational data. So thank you very much for your participation, everyone. Michael, back to you.
Great, excellent. So like I said, what I do is I collect a lot of data points and talk to people. And this first slide, if you've been to another OSIsoft webinar, you may have seen this. It's from Navigant Research. And what they tracked is the industrial IoT opportunity. They took out consumer and just tracked strictly on industrial. And what they're finding is it's a huge, vibrant market. It's projected to be 144.6 billion in 2027, and it's growing about 11.4% a year. And that's hardware, software, and services. As you can see, it's proportional across all geographies, particularly Asia, Asia Pacific, Europe, and North America. And it's happening for a variety of reasons, but it's definitely real. If people tell you IIoT is not happening, they're wrong. And one area where we're really seeing it is, and it's germane to what we're talking about today, is connected devices. This bar chart comes from Kevin Prouty at IC, and they did a poll of large operational companies and asked, how much of your equipment is connected? And what you're seeing is, like that first section is not connected to a network. And just from 2016 to 2018, in a 2-year span, it's gone down from 40% to 22%. So 80% of the devices by the end of 2018 in a factory or in a large refinery were connected, and presumably people were gathering the data and using it. And it's spread. You see wired quite a bit, and you're seeing wireless. Now, we're agnostic toward that. You'll probably see a combination of both. But there's a definite trend. People want to hook up all that 1970s equipment that they bought. It's been doing a great job for decades. Now they want to see what it's up to. Another driver for this is what you can call the silver tsunami. Go into any food manufacturing facility or refinery. What are you going to see? You're going to see a lot of people like me, middle-aged guys with a comb over who are contemplating retirement. And unlike me, a lot of these people are really valuable, and they're going to be leaving these companies. And with them, they're going to take a lot of the tribal wisdom and know-how. These are the people who can sit there and go up toward a transformer and just by listening to it, know what's wrong, right? They have a wealth of experience. It's not really documented. One of the drivers of these sort of services is the fact that actually it takes away that human element or reduces it. Pretty soon now, you collect that data, you can see it on the screen, that data and information is shared. And that's what's interesting is on this poll here, and we did this with Z Prime, you see it's fairly even across all companies. Industrial equipment, green tech, oil and gas, they all expect this to be an impact on their operations. And this is interesting. This actually, the poll earlier, we also with Z Prime, we asked people, are you comfortable with sharing data and do you see it as valuable? And 2/3 of service providers believe data sharing and analysis with customers is important or extremely important. But on the customer side, 87% expect they'll be sharing data with service providers over the next 5 years. And I love this one here in oil and gas. In 2015, the amount of oil and gas asset owners who are very comfortable sharing data jumped from 14% to 62% in just a year, 2015 to 2016. And that's pretty amazing because oil and gas is often very proprietary. They don't like sharing data. That the process they have and the information they have around that process is extremely tightly held. So the idea they're getting more comfortable with service providers means that you're going to see a lot of demand for smart devices. So here are the trends that we're seeing. We're seeing more and more connected equipment and devices. We're seeing a knowledge drain and loss of experience of staff. And businesses are really getting to acknowledge the idea that the data is there, and the more they share it, the more valuable it will be. So now we have polling question number 2. How smart are most of your production systems? Are they connected? Some connected? Highly connected? Please vote. We have the 5 options on the side.
Thank you, Michael. At this time, I'll be opening up the next poll. Michael, based on the IDC research you shared, and the poll that we had earlier, where do you feel most of our audience might be today?
I'm going to guess, I'd say between B and D, but I'd say let's boil it down to C. What's interesting about industry, and I came from the IT world. I've only been in the operational industrial world about the last 5-6 years. In IT, you can't find devices that are 3 to 5 years old. I mean, you go to a large data center, and those servers, they might last 4 years at most, right? Your laptops last 4 years. You go to a manufacturing center, you'll see equipment that's 40 years old, and it's still working, and there's really no reason to get rid of it. So, but the problem is that equipment was put in, even before Ethernet was invented. So a lot of times it's not hooked up at all. We've, one of our customers had a toilet paper saw that would saw these long spools of toilet paper into convenient consumer-sized rolls. It was doing a great job. They had no idea what it was doing. They finally wired it up after 35 years.
Interesting. I could see just like, as we become more and more connected globally, there's going to be a need for, just having this information accessible, at least across the enterprise. Cheto, what has your experience been?
Yes, I see indeed a lot more instrumentation on the machines, machines getting more and more smarter. But at the same time, there's been a move since the early 90s and 2000s to make the access to those machines more and more secure, to be guarded from forces from the outside. So there have been virtual iron gates around these instrumentations, so it's only locally accessible or at most the enterprise. Making the data available so that it can be shared throughout the community is a challenge in this moment in time. The challenge we are working with on a daily basis.
Thank you. At this time, I'll be closing the poll and sharing the results. So what's really interesting, folks, is that a lot of the majority of our audience today, they're either have everything connected at the local or enterprise level, but there are some people that have just some things, but or not connected at all. So it seems like there's still some progress that we're going to be seeing in the future. Well, everyone, thank you again for your participation in this poll. Michael, Cheta, back to you.
Excellent. Well, now let me pass it on to Chita to talk about connected services and smart devices.
Thank you, Michael. My name is Chita Boers. I'm based in Amsterdam, and my job is to facilitate the communication between equipment vendors, service providers, and asset owners. The latter, the asset owners, are already quite for a long time customer of ours. For 39 years, we've been collecting data from the units, from the plants and the enterprises to make one version of the truth. We've been doing this for what we call our core 6. That's industries where we have a dominant market share. So if you go into the oil and gas industry, they will talk about collecting the data, storing the data, making data available through a PI system, just like you would talk about taking an aspirin for a headache. Similar is true for the power and gas and the other industry listed in here. So for industries, we have about 2 billion data streams floating into PI systems today. And those data streams are, data is owned by those asset owners. We as a company are providing an infrastructure to get the data available and to make the data available within these enterprises. And we stay away from the data ownership themselves. That is a lot of value towards these asset owners. At the same time, it poses the previous mentioned challenge of how to share this data, which is now, what Michael pointed out, more and more a driver for businesses today. So what we have our connected services, which is a technical and business framework where we can share this data. And besides talking a bit about technology, I will show a lot of cool examples of how sharing data between equipment vendors and asset owners drives a lot of value. We, as a company, the facilitator here, we provide the infrastructure. And again, we stay away from the data ownership. We just facilitate and broker between data owners and the ones who can drive value between them. So we can do this in a safely and a securely manner. So although the data is stored and guarded between the virtual iron gates of the plants themselves, we have the developed technology can safely and securely through a pop-up mechanism send in the data over to an equipment vendor for driving value from this data. So the asset owner is in full control over what data is shared to which equipment vendor and which service provider. And the moment the asset owners realize that this is possible, so you need to open up your complete plant to a VPN connection or have cumbersome other ways of connectivity, how sharing mechanisms accelerate the value of sharing the data between these equipment. So this is what we call a technical and a business framework. The technical framework explain a little bit about sharing the data, making sure that data can be shared safely and securely. But on the business side, we also understand that for the equipment vendors, it takes time to develop these type of applications and to market these applications back towards those asset owners and operators. And we try to work with those equipment vendors, with you, in a partner mode, to make sure that you are successful using our software, driving the maximum number of value. So our business position there is that we would align our commercial details with your commercial model towards your customers. So let me explain a little bit what the PI system is before I go into how sharing data can be valuable. So you have the different type of equipment from the assets, these existing parts, but it can also be, for instance, a truck or a wind farm or a paper machine or a tableting machine. And we have the activity options over numerous type of interfaces and options to get the data in a safe and a secure manner into a PI system where the data is archived and can be made available at scale. In the PI server has a central part. We can aggregate the data at high volumes. For instance, at the Paris Water, we collect the data from millions of households on a daily basis. Millions of data streams are floating into a PI system every single day in a single server. On top of it, we can contextualize or will contextualize the data and provide a framework to do template-based analysis on this data. So it's very easy to do roll-ups, calculations, or make KPIs on the data collected from the PI server itself. On top of it, we can also detect anomalies and basically act also on event frames and notifications. So from the collection side, the dispersed type of data collection into the central server, we can then make the data available on the egress side for visualization, web-based visualization, powerful PI vision. The engineers also still like to use the data link, so the Excel add-in. And we can integrate also into applications, making sure that through our integrator, nice, clean data sets are transported into AI and machine learning algorithms running in the cloud, being it either in Azure, SAP, or any Google Cloud system. On top of it, we have an extensive partner network which builds application on top of our PI system, and basically these applications usually interface with our PI system using our customized framework. One of the things of the PI system itself, I showed you before, we are operating in different industries. And for instance, a PI system is made sure that our system is secure enough to work in a nuclear industry. And that same PI system is then also working in the pharma industry, where high demand on the tracking and tracing options of the actual production. And also, like I mentioned before, utilities and also in oil and gas, scalability questions of millions of data streams putting into a single PI server. For instance, our customer, oil and gas Shell, we have a single set of PI servers floating all the data from all their assets into. So all these additional features are now available to the system, and which we make also available for machine vendors to collect the data and to drive value. One of the examples I like to give is how our long-term customer, MOL, they're an oil and gas company, and they're collecting data from many of their assets. They have one of their key supplier is Axans. Axans is a company who is a process license holder. It's the owner of the particular license within a refinery. At the same time, they also provide equipment in the refinery, namely the catalytic material. And they know best how to convert to get the best conversion rates out of this material. And there's been a long-standing relationship with MOL already, a worthy relationship, helping them to get the best out of their process and their material, their catalytic material. But this data exchange was mainly with Excel sheets, shuttling Excel sheets back and forth over email channels. Of course, this is not very secure, and at the same time, it imposed a lot of issues with the actual sharing of the data. So, what was the unit of measurement, for instance, which was shared, which conditions it was shared. So, there were actually two companies sharing the data, but not looking at the same data, not looking at the same version of the truth. They both turned to us and said, can you help us maybe in a safe and a secure connection between our refinery and the subject matter expertise, which are in Paris from Axans, streaming and historical, both working on the same version of the truth. We did this with our connected services framework. So where we are able then to get Catalyst operational data in streaming towards the monitoring and diagnostic center of Axans in Paris. Their subject matter experts were looking at the data, and the moment there were excursions, both were looking at the same data sets. This increased the trust level between the companies significantly, so that Axans was now rolling out a lot more of their operations within MOL, because of the close relationship they were both able to establish. At the same time, Axans was able to sell a lot more catalytic material to MOL refineries because of this. All this was facilitated by OSIsoft software, our infrastructure of the data, where MOL and their IT environment scrutinally investigated also the connection mechanisms, because you can imagine having a streaming connection in refinery, kind of security risks that imposes. But they scrutinized our connection mechanisms and deemed it's safe enough to have the connections available. So now Axans is delivering that same service to a lot more oil and gas companies and refineries all over the world. So there are many streaming connections of their data. And from all these different type of plants, they're also now learning how their material is behaving in a lot more detail. And with this learning, they're able to make better material, adapt their processes, gain a true competitive advantage towards their competition. So it's not only Axans which is driving value. So we also have, for instance, about it, one of the next slides is Caterpillar. Caterpillar, with their big engines and their big machines, are driving value from streaming data back to a central system where they are now able to give performance contracts. Ships have, for instance, IHC, manufacturer of dredging ships, monitored their ships, sold to ports, and help them with the operation and the maintenance of these ships. And of course, they know best how to operate and maintain these ships as a manufacturer of these. So within the oil and gas companies, We have, for instance, Shell with their suppliers, with their key suppliers, like for instance, icons, but also equipment vendors like heat exchangers or turbines, driving a lot of value in getting the data, streaming data from this equipment, and thus helping them with the operations. That part is we said technical. The business side is where we work in a partnership way with our equipment vendors and service providers, getting the data. The partner way is where we have you pay as you grow. So the only you are invoiced for the actual usage of the PI system itself, and we align the value which you get out of the system with the which we agree on. So this enables the success on both sides. And so we will help you driving this success in a market manner, but also in a technical and a business way. So for the connected services, the benefit for manufacturers and service providers is not only leveraging the 2 billion data streams which are in OSIsoft systems today. Companies like Google are really jealous of all this information. Again, we as a company stay away from the data ownership. We don't do anything with data. These data sets are owned by the asset owners, but we facilitate with a safe and a secure manner of getting the data from these systems out. Secondly, we help with technology in getting the data from machines directly to a system where you can get real-world feedback, enabling the digital twin. We have partnerships with the companies like, for instance, with Dassault Systems, where we can have the digital twin and enablement, where you can really learn how the actual equipment is running in the field and improving that product. And so having the data, having this real-world feedback allows you to have then, with our as you grow business model, to increase the product performance. At the same time, lowering warranty costs and even have performance contracts available. Like for instance, our customer Caterpillar is able to do, saying within these trucks, if you allow us to do a streaming connection to this truck, we will guarantee you it will not use more than X gallons per mile. If it does more, we will write you a check. Those type of performance guarantees will sell more trucks as well. At the same time, for the customers, having a safe way of sharing the data with their vendors, their equipment vendors, allows them to fill the knowledge gap, which is now getting with a lot of people leaving the industry itself, bringing subject matter expertise within their company on an as-needed basis. And this creates a much deeper relationship, customer-supplier relationship, and this increased trust. And what I've seen over time, that this increased trust is a force to be reckoned with. So if you have this real trusting relationship between the equipment vendor and the asset, both looking in real time at the same data set, a true valuable proposition. And this, in the end, significantly increases operational and maintenance modes of the plant itself. So, to give you an example of where cross-industry knowledge would help is, for instance, in the water, oil and gas industry. So you would have a lot of FPSO, there's a float storage and production units, which collect data, collect oil from oil fields below, but not only oil, a lot of associated water is coming up. In some of the oil wells, you have 90% water and 10% oil. And that water needs to be segregated from the oil, of course. And that segregation happens with filtration units built by Veolia. Veolia is one of the largest water companies in the world, where they also make a lot of water associated equipment, like, for instance, the membrane water filtration units. They saw, again, with Excel sheets, there was quite a lot of difference between the different type of FPSOs, how their equipment was running. Some of them were coming back within weeks. Others were running for 4 months without issues. So also the operational conversion rates of these equipment was changing between the operations, even within the same company. So then Veolia asked them, so if you allow us a streaming connection into your, just showing us information enough for the membrane filter, we can tell you how to best operate these filters. And at the same time, Veolia got valuable feedback on real life situation of these filtration units themselves. So there was an immediate benefit to the operators, in this case SBM and Total. So there was an increased uptime of filtration unit, less breakage of the membrane filters, so less costs, and there were less oil spills, because if a membrane filter breaks, you can get associated oil with water, and that may be put overboard, and that gets a lot of penalty. So, second cool example, I think, is with Caterpillar, a long-term customer of us. Within their ships, monitoring their ships, they were able to get these performance contracts with these ships and with these big mining trucks, and were able to get a lot lower fuel consumption and a lot less maintenance costs. So we're able to predict failures even before they happened, so they could send people out to a tugboat even before the actual failure, with the right spares to address that particular issue.
And in shipping, it's interesting because you'll see a lot of savings from fuel, reducing fuel burn, which ships use an incredible amount of fuel and profit margins are very tight. But also regulatory. There's actually an increasing number of regulations worldwide concerning the quality of fuel and the amount of fuel burned. So to avoid regulatory penalties or even getting their license to operate pulled, you'll see more and more services like this, just ongoing monitoring to make sure that ship's operation stays within the safe band.
Thank you, Michael. So, another, I won't go into too much detail of those, but we've seen a lot of interesting cases happening with industries in transition. It's, again, the industries which are, for instance, the biofuels, the energy sectors, like, for instance, power factors, monitoring gigawatts, solar and wind, and helping in the operation of it. But also industries with a high cost pressure, like, for instance, the metal and mining industry. Where you see, for instance, Autotech, they are monitoring their own machines which are in the metal industry, like, for instance, the mills, grinders, those type of machinery. They send them out countries far away. For instance, one of the examples they mentioned is Burkina Faso. They don't want to travel to Burkina Faso. They don't want to have any boots on the ground in Burkina Faso. So having the connections available, streaming connections, to help the people how to best operate these machines in those countries helps them tremendously, drive a lot of value, and enables them to sell more machines. We have a lot more compelling examples on our website. I think this deck is shared afterwards, Tom, is that correct? It was made available afterwards?
Correct, yes. We will be sharing the recording and this presentation deck with all attendees following the webinar today.
Right, so, and then these links you can click on and you will find more inspiring use cases, and also how some of the details of our connected services. And of course, you're willing to reach out to me if you want to have some more specific information on connected services and how it can help you as a company with your equipment. And I'm happy to facilitate the communication between you and your assets of your machinery. That was it for me, Tom.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Chetta. If you can go to the next slide. At this time, we will be conducting our Q&A session and taking questions from the audience. Once again, please use the Q&A option to the right of your WebEx interface, and we will answer questions as they arrive. If you have happened to change your view to full screen, the Q&A option may now be located at the bottom. And so we'll take our first question here. Michael, we had someone within the textile industry that was wondering what would be some successful use for connected services for their organization. Can you provide some examples and some benefits in terms of what someone in the textile industry could see?
Yeah, so within a discrete industry, we see a stronger uptake of the connection of machines, and so it's not only within the textile, but also the food and beverage, and very similar also within the pharma industry, where you see you have a long row of connected machines together, sometimes with different manufacturers, and I think to be able to get these machines in a safe and a secure manner, the data out to the suppliers of machines, where the textile manufacturer is in full control over what is shared, it drives a lot of value. Maybe you have a...
Yeah, I would say in some ways you could analogize it to what we're seeing in pulp and paper. In the pulp and paper industry, if you ask people on the street or the average person, they think it's an industry in decline. Actually, pulp and paper is now on an upswing because what companies are doing is buying rundown mills from the 50s and 60s, retrofitting them, and instead of making paper, they're making specialty types of paper, the kind of things that comes in, very delicate boxes for medicines, things like that. A lot of different types of materials. And with textile, the same thing. You have, in a lot of areas, you have a lot of old aging factories. They're going in, they're replacing things and moving toward different sort of products. When you do that, a lot of these pieces of equipment will be connected because it is, with textiles, it can be a continuous process. And if something goes wrong, if there's a rip, if there's a tear, everything shuts down for the day, or everything shuts down for 4 hours, and that can be tens of thousands of dollars lost. So just being able to monitor that in real time is going to be an issue. And we do see it in pulp and paper, so I imagine we will see it in textiles.
Gentlemen, our next question, what type of cybersecurity architecture is recommended for connected services integration, regarding data transformation, operational data transformation, and equipment monitoring?
I don't think there is a golden bullet for one single architecture which is best suited. It depends, I think, on the industry, on the equipment, which is the remote equipment, the data being transmitted, the security risks. But we have a quite wide range of technical options to address these.
One security technology I think might see more of, hopefully, is one-way diodes. Basically, one-way diodes are a gateway box that allows you to take OT data and send it out of the OT, isolated area through the DMZ to the IT department, but data can't come back in. For years, and these diodes are great because they do wall you off from a lot of dangers. For years, though, they've only been used by utilities or large oil companies because they're expensive. But the price now is coming down fairly substantially. So when that comes down, you'll see them placed out more and more. And once those are in a connected service environment, basically a trusted provider could go inside the wall, inside the DMZ, analyze and monitor equipment, and send data signals out. So when actually they see a problem, then someone on the outside could actually signal the company to say, by the way, go check line 23. There's something going on. You could see some of that. I haven't seen it yet with connected services, but I think it will with the decline in price of the diodes.
Excellent. Our next question, some companies with the IT and the OT have different cultures. Under these circumstances, how do you manage integration to maximize ROI?
Somebody with that's an insightful question. Yes. So indeed, there's always a tension between the IT and the OT environment, and especially within connected services, because connected services, if you think about it, usually goes from the OT into an IT environment, again into an IT environment, has some OT components, and then goes back. So it has many bridges to cover there between IT and OT. What I see is that a lot more companies are addressing this by creating departments which have merging the IT and the OT component together. So, for instance, the moment you see a chief digital officer, usually that has an IT and an OT component at the same time, exactly because to be able to address the type of issues. So. Within organizations, we see the organizations change to address these issues. And also for us, we were originally mainly an OT company, but now we are also an OT and an IT company at the same time.
Yeah, I'd go along with that. It's like breaking down that cultural barrier. I remember speaking to a customer about 3 years ago. I asked him, he was an OT engineer, and I said, "Do you deal much with IT?" And he sort of stared at me and he said, "We don't like to talk to them too much." And it was kind of a weird statement on the state of OT IT relationships, but it's definitely gotten better. And like at companies like DCP, where they form that digital committee and they have IT represented and OT represented, that's where you see a lot of progress because it's really, they have the same goals. They've just been separated by corporate organization and office politics. And once they get together, things can move forward. But yeah, it's breaking that barrier can be kind of tough.
Thank you. Next question, what is providing leadership to get a greater understanding of like what the initiatives are with like connected services and digital transformation? What changes in the organization are being made?
Changes in organization from OSI Soft or from equipment vendors or asset owners?
From, I believe it's from like other industries within this person's field.
Yeah, like I said, what I see, especially within companies who are used to making metal, so big machineries, they're now merging also into gaining traction to selling services, and there you see what I mentioned before, that you have the chief digital officer on one hand being able to sell the services associated with these big chunks of metal. On the other hand, the IT component, how to deliver these services back into the market. And that is a problem a lot more companies are addressing with these digital ventures.
One thing I'm actually seeing too, kind of following on what you said there, Chide, is take a company, Air Liquide. Air Liquide did a massive digital transformation. They monitor a lot of their facilities remotely in Southeast Asia and in France. And what they realized is that what they set up was actually quite a phenomenal system. So what they've done is calved off a subsidiary called Alizent that resells the same digital services they use internally to the third-party customers. So really, it goes from being a save cost and drive productivity to a new line of revenue. So now that, of course, takes a whole managerial thing. But you're seeing other companies do that as well. Saudi Aramco's talked about a new service they call IMOMS, which will help party chemical and petrochemical companies become more efficient based on technologies they've been using internally. A few utilities, TEPCO and KEPCO in Japan, are also doing the same thing. So that's more the advanced stage where you see companies really adjusting their management to capitalize on what they've done. But it's definitely a trend.
Thank you. Our next question. For an equipment vendor selling to multiple sites of a single customer and multiple customers, can the system enable a view of a single site info, or aggregate from all the sites of one customer, or aggregate data from all like a customized view?
Oh yes, that's possible. Huh? So to aggregate the data over single customers and make reports back towards those customers. Those are native functionalities of the Pi system, which can be leveraged to for these type of queries.
Thank you. Our next question, based on your experience, which organization would benefit or which organization shall cover like the data engineering department? That's something focused on the business unit or IT to leverage the maximum benefit?
Oh, another insightful question here. So a lot of the machine learning, what I've seen within companies, that is related to T side of it. So what is happening with the machines itself, but getting the data out to these engineers and data engineers is very much an IT project. So you would see that a AI or an ML is then accompanied by a team of IT engineers just to be able to get the data into the data lake before they can actually work on that particular data. We also have solutions for this where we can help these data engineers so they can drive a lot more value from the data collected. So don't first of all have to clean the data as much, don't have to argument the data, but also on the IT components in the data availability. Our offering, I think, helps these engineers to do their job with a lot more efficiency with a lot less IT components.
Michael, anything to add to that?
No, that's exactly it. It's OT gathers the data and IT can actually help them circulate it and funnel it into the right application. That's how basically ML works. It's IT plays that role of connecting the two.
Thank you. Question, when it comes to connected services, what IT OT strategy do you suggest for someone managing a greenfield plant?
Not sure how to answer that one because that very much depends on the type of industry, the type of equipment, how to manage it. So if that person would come up and maybe send me a personal ping, then I can address that question if I have a lot more details.
Just kind of a general thing. I mean, basically include everyone. Flowserve, one of our favorite examples. They make pumps. And in fact, the company actually can trace its heritage back to 1790, and now they're making smart pumps. And in one example, a welder's blanket began to get sucked up into one of the pumps in this massive refinery. Right? They detected it right away. They were able to stop it, and they saved about $630,000. Really sold it to the ultimate end users. The fact that people got a warning what was happening and were able to prevent a big disaster. But in IT, they were able to look at the numbers and realize that this one incident where they were able to stop the accident saved $630,000. It would have cost about $50,000. It cost about $50,000 just the shutdown they did to pull the blanket out. But the whole thing would have been much, much worse. So IT was happy because they saved a lot of money, and OT was happy because they avoided an accident. So if you're selling the service, make sure everyone in the loop is included and everyone gets what they want, or everyone can see what the benefits are.
Thank you, Michael. Our next question, is connected services capability mostly a data streaming out service, or does it enable, if the asset owner agrees, to enable things like initial device provisioning for fleet management, key updates, equipment firmware updates, etc.?
So the area we work in usually is our critical operations of these companies. So getting the data out in a safe and a secure manner is a very strong focus. So in most cases, what we see is just getting the data out, and even not allow any ways of getting data back in is a ask from our customers. And because this is an ask, then that will prohibit then sending in the data back, but also doing those type of remote updates. It is probably something what will come into to the industry sooner than later. But the ask of our customers at this moment in time is still very closely getting data out. Like for instance, the data diodes, what Michael was mentioning. Data diodes working. You can only send light into one direction and not into the other.
And you'll see combination layers, like like Chide said, we give them the data so the third-party equipment maker can see what's. There's also companies like ARM that have services for remote device provisioning and things like that. So if you combine the two, you have device management and data management together in one service from a single OEM.
Correct. Yes, very, very, very true. And then, but you will see then that the data flow has one type of architecture, and the device management has a second type of architecture, making sure that both cannot interfere.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's just see if we have any more questions. All right, well, if there are no further questions, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. If you do happen to have any additional queries following today, please feel free to reach out to us from one of the follow-up emails sent out after today's presentation. Once again, thank you for attending our webinar, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And Michael Cheda, thank you so much for presenting this morning.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Tom, for hosting this good webinar. Thank you.
And I'd add one thing, actually. If you're in a utility, check out a company called SPS. Basically what they're doing, think of it as like Yelp for utility power plant performance. They take your data, they anonymize it, then they compare it to 200 to 300 other utilities they've examined and see how you're performing compared to your peers. It's all anonymized. It's based on connected services along with their own technology. But it's a kind of service that people find it very valuable, but it's a kind of service you'll see more and more across other industries. It's really a business model that's going to be extremely common in the next 5 years.
All right. Thanks again, everyone. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.